One more question. Did anyone win the one-on-one meeting?
I'll have to go through the I'll have to go through the response and yeah, and remember valued at $13.50. So use that wisely.
Awesome. Well, super excited to bring on our next guest trainer and educator. This gentleman is an amazing entrepreneur with an amazing background, and it's actually fairly diverse as well. But he's going to be doing a workshop right now about corporate innovation. So I'd like to introduce to today's event, J.Mawer. And Simon began his career as a corporate litigator in Australia before spending 9 years leading business innovation for Stanford University's health system in California. Back in 2015, he launched the Innovents Lab in partnership with IDEO and the D School, where he led clinical innovation and digital transformation initiatives and consulted for payers, providers, and policymakers all across the United States and the United Kingdom. After Stanford, Simon joined Plug and Play as innovation manager, where he served as an advisor on corporate innovation for its healthcare and insurtech partners before launching Wren in 2020. And that's a design consultancy that helps Fortune 1000 organizations transform in times of rapid change. He's passionate about the role design can play as a driver of organizational change. He's the co-author of Discovery Design, the seminal playbook on design thinking for healthcare innovation. He holds an MBA from the Rotman School of University at Toronto, where he graduated as a Bregman Scholar, a law degree from the University of Technology, Sydney, and certificates in innovation and entrepreneurship from Stanford University. So I believe we got a world-class educator when it comes to corporate innovation and a monster in the world of design, monster being a dominant good thing. Excited to have you here, Simon. Welcome to our Moonshot House community event.
Thanks, E-Rock, and this has been awesome. I love Jeff's sessions, and it's been a great 2 days. It's been awesome, and you've been doing a great job, man. Well, hey everyone. Stoked to spend some time with you this morning or this afternoon. I'm sitting in Australia, so it's this morning for me. Look, I'm going to put a link in the chat here to a Miro board that I want you all to join me at, because there'll be an opportunity for folks to participate. Yeah, corporate innovation. So you know, I was invited to do a workshop, and folks who've known me, you know, we were discussing, you know, what would be useful for this community. Oh, look, and here you all are. Hi everyone. There's many different, you know, many different places to go with this, but what I was thinking was doing a small exercise that I've done with a lot of corporate innovators, innovation managers who, you know, I interact with at Plug and Play. You know, a lot of people are responsible for innovation in their companies. Either they're in a startup and they're thinking about strategy or otherwise, or they're in a large organization and they're thinking, how do I align what we do and get an innovation agenda together? And one of the things I was quite surprised by when interacting with a lot of folks who are basically the chief innovation officer or responsible for innovation and growth is I asked them, what is your innovation strategy? Like, where is it? Like, could you please provide it to me in a piece of paper? And I don't think I've seen a single organization where the innovation strategy is actually written down. Actually, that's not true. I've seen two. But it's actually very, very rare. And I think that's kind of surprising. And if there's folks who have one, I'd love to know, because I'd love to know, like, what are the processes that give rise to that. But what I found myself doing at Plug and Play in particular, and in our consulting practice, is spending quite a bit of time working with executive teams on just building a simple innovation strategy. And there are tools for doing this out there. I mean, most people have heard of the 3 Horizons model for, you know, thinking about innovation, but just like Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, it's like a book that a lot of people have heard of, very few people have read. And in terms of,
I've read that book. It's a fantastic book, and everybody should read it.
I know, right? I know, right? But I end up just giving people the 5-minute YouTube video.
Yes, you have to have a modicum of dedication.
Sri, that is Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. It's possibly the best book when it comes to change and innovation that you'll ever read. It's the book that I think all change management and innovation books build off of. He's a Nobel Prize winning psychologist. He won the Nobel Prize in economics. He's regarded as the father of behavioral economics. And the book is basically his magnum opus of his research with a collaborator, last name Tversky, over 50 years or so. He's awesome. Daniel Kahneman. There we go. The links in the chat. All right, so let's hop into this. And my hope by the end is to show you how to use the 3 horizons model to actually build an innovation strategy for your firm. This model was introduced in the mid to late 90s. So it's been around for a while. It's tried, true, and tested. And it's an amazing tool for having a discussion with your executives or with your key stakeholders around what are the innovation priorities that are before us? How do we think about aligning those in our minds so that we can set priorities and align resources, etc. So let's hop into it. So I'm going to share my screen as well, so that if folks are having some issues with Miro, you can just follow along there. Can you see my screen, Ira?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
And Simon, just to confirm, do you want to run through the educational process and not interrupt the flow, or do you want to interject appropriate questions, or do you want to open that up whenever you feel like you want to open it up to ask questions?
Yeah, so I love the constant interaction. So you stay on screen, and as folks have questions, let's I'm going to leave the Q&A box here, so folks chat away, and this might work well if I get the opportunity to banter with you a bit along the way, Iraq. So let's do that. Awesome. So look, pace of change faster than ever. You've been tasked with guiding your firm into the future. There's a lot of trends, startups to explore, disruption at the door. You don't have time to lose. Where should you begin? So here I am, innovation expert, to guide you on your way. So hello, that's me. What are we going to do? So I'll give you a quick primer on this model. We'll do a bit of a brainstorm. I'll show you how to use it. By the end, you'll walk away with an innovation, at least a conversation starter for an innovation strategy for your firm, which would be a good tool to have. And then let's share and discuss, and let's push and pull on it, and learn from each other. Looks like we have a mighty crew with us today. We've got 5 people on the board, so let's rock and roll. So, all right. So why is building an innovation strategy hard? I don't know, Iraq, have you ever been asked to build an innovation strategy for your firm, or have you ever worked with clients who've said, hey, can you put this together for
40
us?
times.
Yeah. So what gets in the way? Like, is it surprising to you when I said that very few firms seem to have an innovation strategy written down?
I think, and just as an educated, synthesized opinion, would be that the challenge is just creating enough growth with what they've already got, that the challenge is how do I manage that in the dynamic of trying to manage all the things we have to do operation wise, that we can actually have a meaningful innovation.
Yeah, no, for sure. And for folks from the Miro board, feel free to grab a Post-it note and write something else down. I just thought about a few things that I've seen. There's just so much noise. Folks are kind of like kids in a candy shop. And I think Jeff spoke about the paralysis that can happen when you've got so many technologies to consider, so many parts of the organization that desperately need help, that it can be difficult to know where to focus. In my experience at Stanford, you've got a huge organization with all of the smartest minds on the planet all together, and everyone has the right answer. And so you get this kingdoms approach where it's very difficult to align on efforts. Everyone's busy building their own thing. Misaligned incentives. So it's very difficult, for instance, to talk about creating efficiencies in IT when the CIO's compensation is tied to the number of people they manage. So just forget it. That's just not going to happen. Failed projects, people have been burned by a lot of money being invested in the wrong things. Incessant focus on the core, I see. Yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of what you were talking about there. Let's see, how you're going with the Miro board. Is that working? Jeff, I can see you cruising around. I took a cheeky screenshot of your presentation, Jeff, and whacked it in there.
I'm flattered, mate.
No, it was good. Yeah. Oh, what was this one? Hard to know how to start. Yeah, very good. So let's. Charles Eames, who was the famous chair designer, is credited. I don't know if he actually said it, but he's credited as whenever you design something, always design the thing in its next greatest context. So design the chair in the room in the house in the life of the person for whom you're designing. If you're going to design an innovation strategy, you need to start off with the corporate strategy. What's the strategy of the organization? So let's start there. So what is strategy? Sometimes it's helpful just to do the funnel and start at the very, very beginning. So I really like this definition from Roger Martin from my alma mater. It's a set of interrelated and powerful choices that positions the organization to win. And there's two sides of strategy. There's the demand side of strategy and the supply side of strategy. So on the demand side, it's all about identifying opportunities to create customer value with competitive advantages. The idea is that there are lots of opportunities to create customer value, but unless you can find one that you can create with an advantage over the competition, you probably shouldn't compete there because you'll lose. And on the supply side, it's all about building an organization that's capable of seizing those opportunities profitably. So supply side and the demand side to strategy. And this is what marketers should be thinking about. This is what CEOs should be thinking about. It's really what the entire organization should be thinking about. It's about the demand side, finding opportunities. It's about the supply side, building an organization or building capabilities to seize those opportunities profitably. And so when we talk about competition, like how do you compete in the marketplace? It's really, really important to understand what your competitive advantage is. If you don't have a competitive advantage, you don't compete, said Jack Welch. And there's really two sides of, yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Apologies. I just wanted to make sure what you're speaking about on the Miro board is also reflected on the Zoom. And so what I'm seeing is the innovation strategy hard slide and half the page of the strategy slide.
All right. What about now?
Now we're still seeing it's almost like it looks like it's frozen. So maybe you want to reshare your screen. Maybe Zoom got stuck.
Come on, Zoom, work with me here.
I'll send an email to Eric and let him know, hey man, you need to innovate Zoom.
Yeah. All right. How about now? I'm just sharing the desktop. How about
that? Double click to enter full screen mode.
That's what it says to me.
That's what it shows on the presentation. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. I'll try one more time. But everyone's over on Miro, I hope. We've got the link in there. How about now?
Double click to enter full screen mode. It says start screen sharing. So that's strange. Maybe you need to double click on the page.
It's a little vexing. Let's try this. What's happening now?
Same thing. Do you want me to try to potentially share my screen, or does that kind of mess you up?
No, if you share your screen, go for it. It's going to be the same thing.
We're going to innovate on the fly. We hope.
Oh, no, it's all good. It's fantastic. There we go. That'll do. All right. So there's two sources of competitive advantage, which is how you compete in the marketplace. So you can think about this in your own life, actually. Either you compete on offering or you compete on operations. So in terms of offering, this just means that you provide something that the competition doesn't. The reason why they pay, Jeff so much money to do what he does is because he's the bee's knees, right? There's only one Jeff Tam on the planet. So he's innovating on product. He's wants to innovate on service, experience, and brand, because those are the basis of competition. You can see how Apple and Samsung just duke it out on product, on an offering, and in terms of brand and experience, Apple seems to have the edge. But in terms of the actual technical aspects of the product, it would seem that Samsung is often ahead of the game. On operations, that's the other side of competition. This is often on the supply side, but it's really got to do with more QCT, so quality, timeliness, and cost, which is where maybe you do exactly what Jeff does. It's just that Jeff does it with higher quality, he does it with a lower cost, and he does it faster. So faster, better, stronger. And this is a little graph you can see on screen, which is just the US vehicle sales market share. And the blue line is the US companies, and the red line is the internationals, and it's predominated by the Japanese auto manufacturers. A good example here would be Toyota with TPS, the Toyota Production System Lean Management, which was a superior operational architecture that enabled them to produce better quality vehicles at a lower cost and faster for the customer. So they're not providing cars that look better, that a better service experience, a better experience, a better brand. Look to Europe, look to some of the Americans for that. But if you want something that is high quality, that comes at a lower cost, they're able to deliver it because of the superior operations. So the key thing here is, for your company, whether it's a startup or a large organization, you need to understand what is the source of your competitive advantage in the marketplace, because that needs to drive everything. That drives the ship. The issue, of course, is value propositions erode over time. Your competitive advantages do erode over time, and what got you here will not get you there. I mean, I always love thinking in these in S curves. So you think about like a relationship or your exercise program. You start off with this slow period of emergence. You're just getting to know each other. Then there's this period of explosive growth where you're in love and seeing each other every day and all that. And then eventually things kind of will mature over time until you start having some conversations and put in place a date night or something like that. If you don't do these things, things will fall into decline. Similar to exercise, you start off slowly learning how to bench press, or otherwise you go into explosive growth mode, hopefully. But if you just do the same exercise over and over and over, you're eventually not going to get the gains that you're looking for. It's the same thing in a company. All companies were startups at some point, and they go through a period of emergence, explosive growth, and then they mature. And then the entire reason for a company is to conserve the growth that has been made, right? Their whole goal is not maximizing variation. The whole goal is to continue to execute on a value proposition. So that's why policies and procedures come in, and it's all about stopping to change. That's why it's really, really difficult, and why you see so often it's difficult for a bit large organizations to innovate, is because you're basically trying to get the organization to do something it's specifically designed not to do, which is to change in fundamental ways. And this is often called the innovator's dilemma, or the architectural barrier. You can look at Clay Christensen's work in relation to that. But the key here is you need to understand that what is your competitive advantage? How do you compete in the marketplace? Do you provide something that others don't, or do you provide the same thing, but you do it faster, better, cheaper? The second thing to know is your competitive advantage will erode over time. Others will catch up. And so that's why it's so critical to understand what those value propositions are. And then while the going's good, right, or while you're still in that growth phase, get out of the bath and look for the new source of competitive advantage. Look for how you can create more real estate between you and the competition. And you've got to do that while the going is good. And it's really, really hard to do that when it doesn't feel like there's urgency. Obviously, when there's urgency, it can sometimes be too late, which is where big firms fail, through disruption. But the leading firms go from one industry leading paradigm to the other because they've developed an actual capability. They've developed a competitive advantage in themselves, which is their R&D function. So a little example from Apple, for instance, the first industry leading business, you think about iPod and iTunes in 2007 or so, moving to the second in 2015, which would be the iPad and the iPhone. And now today, I was staggered about how much money they're making from the AirPods, these things, and of course moving into services and subscription based, so business model innovation, continuing to make like serious gains and put serious real estate between them and the competition. But they're doing it over and over and over because they understand what are their sources of competitive advantage, and they're looking for ways to disrupt themselves lest they be disrupted. So the Three Horizons model, articulated in the late 90s, as I said, it's a simple way to explain the need for an ambidextrous organization. And what that means is basically an organization that executes on its current business while simultaneously creates new capabilities around their competitive advantages. And so Three Horizons, the highest level, Horizon 1 is maintaining and defending the core business. Horizon 2, nurturing the emerging business, and Horizon 3, creating genuinely new businesses. Let's just dive into each of the horizons. And we think in S-curves again. So the first horizon is really the current prevailing system as it continues into the future, which loses fit over time as the external environment changes. So you can think about this as an S-curve moving into decline. So Horizon 1 ideas provide continuous innovation to a company's existing business model and core capabilities. So anything that's around, hey, what's broken now? How do we continue to exploit our current value proposition to get more value out of it while it still remains? These are all Horizon 1. The methodology then says, hey, move to Horizon 3, skip Horizon 2, go straight to Horizon 3. What is the glorious future? So this is about arguments of the future of the system that are marginal now, that are barely emergent now, but could displace first horizon paradigms. So if Horizon 3 conditions come about, Horizon 1 is irrelevant. And there's obviously many futures where that's possible. So you think about what is our competitive advantage now? What could arise in the market that would completely take us out? How would we compete in that space? What would we need to become? What services, offerings, experiences would we need to be providing to our customers to compete effectively with competitive advantage in that environment? That's Horizon 3. So it's the creation of new capabilities to take advantage of or respond to disruptive opportunities or to counter disruption. Once you've canvassed that, now you can start thinking about Horizon 2, because there's got to be a bridge. So it's in this intermediate space. This is the messy middle where a lot of difficult conversations can happen in large organizations, where it can feel like you're going to sink the ship unnecessarily. There's a lot of culture clash here. Competing alternative pathways to the future are proposed. But Horizon 2 ideas generally extend the company's existing business model and core capabilities to new customers, markets, or targets. So sometimes this is sending our current products and finding brand new customers to deliver them to. Might involve some reconfiguration, or in an open innovation context, it might involve partnering with startups to bolt on brand new capabilities so that we can launch new products to our existing customers or new products to new customers. So this is often in Horizon 2. So putting that all together, how do you use this to generate an innovation strategy? And you can do it by asking some simple questions. So the first question is, based around Horizon 1, is where does resistance to change exist within the system now? Now, if you're a large organization, obviously this is relevant. If you're a small organization, this is super relevant too. I just had a meeting yesterday with a startup founder who was saying, my startup is blowing up because we can't make decisions as a team. That's not uncommon. So where does resistance to change exist within the system now? That is a Horizon 1 challenge, and desperately important. The old parable that the seed has got to fall on good soil. And so you've got to till that soil. So where does resistance to change exist within the system now? The second question is, what's broken now? So in terms of your current value proposition, where are the frictions that are destroying value for your customers? And that could be on the supply side, as in at the interface between the employees and the resources, the internal procedures, or on the demand side, which is with the customers. Third question, what's the grand future vision? So let's now think about what is our customer actually trying to accomplish? And in the future, say 3 to 5 years, what could arise that would completely take us out? That's not a bad way of thinking about it. And let's think of alternative futures, leveraging the technologies of tomorrow. Where does our industry look? And so this, look at the futurists, look at the new technologies, and come up with some ideas about how you completely reconfigure your business to ultimately achieve what the client's trying to do. And then you can ask the next question, which is, where is evidence of the future in the present? So you got to start somewhere. And one of the key aspects of the model is that you don't work on Horizon 1, then Horizon 2, then Horizon 3. You can currently work on all three. It's just a matter of how much focus. So where is evidence of the future in the present? Question 5 has got to do Horizon 1 again. So what can we keep or extend within what we're currently doing? And then Horizon 6, how do we bridge between paradigms? If we're going to go completely autonomous in terms of our customer service, where do we begin? And maybe we begin with a chatbot. Maybe we experiment with a certain use case, these kinds of things. But just asking these simple questions can be very, very helpful in aligning the organization's thinking around the innovation agenda and how much time to focus on what. There's a really good paper, most of you may have seen this, but it was in HPR a little while ago. But it's basically entitled How to Manage an Innovation Portfolio. And there was some research done that indicated that leading firms tend to arrange the work in terms of innovation along a 70-20-10 resource allocation, which means 70% is basically Horizon 1, solving resistance to change. Secondly, fixing what's broken now and generating as much value out of the current value proposition or business model as freaking possible before disruption comes. Then 20% is really focused around that adjacent space, that Horizon 2, which is expanding your existing business into new territory by new products and services for existing customers, or using your products and services and finding brand new customers for them. And then 10% in the transformation space, radically new breakthroughs that would render Horizon 1, the core, completely irrelevant now, but are absolutely necessary so that when the future arrives, you're able to transition over. So I commend that to you. But in essence, you can see the move from using the Horizons model to look at, hey, what is the innovation landscape? What are the various possibilities in front of us? And then leveraging something like this portfolio map to think about, well, all right, well, how do we think about our effort as a company? Where, this 10% a week is half a day. It's not nothing, right? It's not nothing. But a lot of companies don't do anything in the transformation space, do very, very little in the adjacent space, and everything's on the core. And that's a recipe for not being here in a few years' time. All right, so let's do it. So I'm going to zoom out here, and hopefully that's, yeah, it is tracking me. Oh, well done. Good guys, Miro. So there is enough space here for everyone to grab a board for yourself, and let's do it. So I'll create this little template for us all. And what it calls for is for us all just to start off with, type your name in the box. If you want to rename anonymous, just put your spirit animal in there. And the first question is, what are your key sources of competitive advantage for your company? Could be market, offerings, operations. Come up with 5 ideas, and then the template walks you through those three horizon questions. Where does resistance to change exist within the system now? And then the second question under there is, how might we create demand and capacity for change within the organization? Someone's in there. I'll find a clean one to explain. And then the third question is, how might we exploit the remaining sources of competitive advantage that we have now? Then Horizon 3, what's our grand future vision? How will we compete in the future? Where is evidence of the future in the present? How might we start investing in the future now? And then Horizon 2, how might we create new sources of competitive advantage? So new markets, offerings, or operations. And then how might we bridge between Horizon 1 and Horizon 2 paradigms? And that's really talking about the organization, knocking down the resistances to change, etc. Now, once we've done all that, it's very simple. Choose your best ideas from the categories with a star and just drag them over to our little map over here where they should exist. And now you've got something that you can share with your executive team or your non-executive team around, hey, we need to develop an innovation strategy, guys. I've heard that we need to dedicate half a day to the future, day and a half to what's coming, and the rest of that time on what's now. But let's really focus up on what our competitive advantages are, how we actually compete in the market, and how we can make sure that we're exploiting that value, but looking to the future at the same time. And that's the general run of show. So let's see. All right, we've got a number of people in the Miro board. So why don't you all just grab any one of these boards. Are folks having? I can see you all there. I'm wondering whether it's working for you. Could we get some feedback in the chat? Is it working?
So yeah, if you can type in the chat box, folks, let us know if you're able to use the Miro system. Maybe it's an issue of just trying to understand the UI, but hopefully it's fairly intuitive.
I wonder if it was me. It should work now. I think I was in presentation mode, which might lock everyone out. Let's try now. All right, good. If you want to type in a post-it note, you just click on the post-it note and then double click and it should give you a cursor. Otherwise, you can just type T and you can just write text in the little sections there. Sweet. I can see we're all rocking and rolling now. Cool.
Awesome. And while we give people a chance to do that, I just want to comment on the fact that, Simon, I'm not sure how much thought and intention you put into this presentation, right? Seems very much haphazard at the last minute. Obviously being a pretty facetious here of just like, what an amazing experience. You're teaching a course on innovation. And here you are, innovative in your process of collaboration and getting people to engage with your presentation. So kudos, man.
Oh, well, thanks. My head feels large.
As well it should be, kind sir.
Well, why don't we do this together? We could think about this for any kind of firm. So.
Well, I know one of the more engaged person today, and I'm going to put them on the spot, is Sherry. She's been somebody that has been engaged all day long and has just been super commenting and super engaged. So I am putting you on the spot if you're still here with us, but maybe we want to give you the opportunity to kind of be in the hot seat, Sherry.
Is Sherry still with us?
Maybe she had to jam because of her being here all day. So if somebody wants to offer to kind of get a little bit in the hot seat, please let us know, type in the chat box or the question box.
Otherwise, you and I can, we can go through it as an example if you like. I can see a lot of cursors going back and forth on the page, which is good. So. All right, well, why don't we do a little demonstration one then? So let's pick any kind of organization. Let's do a fictional organization. So pick an industry, any industry that you or I might have some familiarity with, E-Rock.
All right, so let's see. We can go into. How about this? Are you familiar at all with like transportation, like bicycle industry? Is that too specific?
I've ridden a bike in my time.
All right, well, let's pick one of the companies. Oh, actually, no, let's do this. Let's pick how about a podcasting company? One of the companies I'm an equity partner and advisor for is a podcasting company.
Okay. All right. So what would you say in terms of, and look, I love podcasts, and now the market is a red ocean. Like it's just completely flooded. So what would be, for this particular podcasting app, what would be its key sources of competitive advantage? Let's say on the product side.
Well, on the product side, something that they're in the process of taking to market is a proprietary patent pending microphone that will self-contain and provide a quality podcast without any wires, completely self-contained.
Okay, so this is like the product enables people to create podcasts on the fly?
That's one of the products within the platform.
Within the platform. Okay, so it makes it easier. So the experience for the creator is a superior experience, right?
Yeah, if I was, for example, we were in the same room and I walked up and I had the self-contained microphone, I could just go up and literally turn it on, do an interview back and forth, and it records.
Okay, so it's really the experience for the creator. We make it easier, and so you have some assumptions there, right? That creators are looking in the marketplace for platform partners or producing partners, and you're saying that the reason we're going to win and the reason we win the marketplace is because we make it easier for these creators to launch their podcasts and get their content out there.
Yes, that's another one of the protocols, is that they have an entire done for you platform to where you just basically hand over the podcast and they provide the deliverables.
Okay, so frictionless like creation and production.
Yes.
Okay. All right, how else do you compete in the marketplace? Because obviously, all right, you're saying, one, we make it easier for you, but is that enough to win in the marketplace?
No. Part of it is the education and strategy side. So you know how to differentiate yourself in terms of who you want to target with your audience, and also importantly on how to monetize the process.
So there's a competitive advantage around marketing. Like how do you convince creators that this is the best platform for them? Is that what you're saying? Like the platform itself has superior marketing?
It's targeted at helping from an educational perspective on how to run a successful show, as opposed to just being a tech company that just hosts your podcast and you're going to have to figure out all the marketing side and the production side of things.
And all right, so it's really attending to the end-to-end experience of creators, right?
Yes.
So that's to do with the marketing. That's from creation all the way through to marketing.
Yes.
Cool. And then on the back end, I imagine there's analytics as well. Like you guys create like an entire, HUD for them, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Okay.
Right. So basically, you're saying that we make this frictionless, and we compete because we're the easiest, most easily accessible, basically podcast creation partner for you. We take care of all the hard stuff. You just create the content, we do the rest.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So all right, that's on the demand side. What about on the supply side? So Jeff showed the balanced breakthrough model. So are you scratching a customer itch? So okay, yes, itch scratched. But in terms of the technology itself, I imagine that if your promise is we make this easy, then in terms of every single one of these aspects of the platform, it has to be completely frictionless. So the product itself has got to be the bee's knees.
Yeah, and statistically, the pod fate rate, which is the industry standard on measuring how many podcasts launch and ultimately are not produced in continuity, is typically over 80%. And on our platform or their platform, it's actually 7%. So basically a 90% plus success rate on helping people not only launch, but sustain and grow their shows.
Okay, great. I think the other side on the supply side is how do you actually get your message out to creators?
So primarily up till this point, it's been for the most part word of mouth and relationships.
Okay. So interesting. So if we think about finding opportunities to create value on the demand side, and then building an organization that's capable of seizing that value profitably on the supply side, feels like you've identified that there's a unique need in the market, which is how do you make it easy? There's a lot of creators out there, but they find it difficult. So if we attend to the end-to-end experience and take care of all the hard stuff, that's going to scratch a significant itch. On the supply side, we've got to make sure that we deliver on the promise of an absolutely superior UX and actually do make it easy. We've got some data suggests that that's the case. But in terms of actually exploiting that value profitably, currently relying on word of mouth, which may be fine, but it's certainly the case that probably you need some sort of, there's probably network effects that are inherent to the business model, and marketing feels like a huge deal.
Yes, and I mean
Yeah.
the challenge that's it's being overcome is the balance between reinvesting into the growth of the company, and then obviously marketing budget and consider economic decisions.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if there was another competitor, another company who wanted to go into the same space, what would you say would be the reason you win and they don't?
Systemization of processes. So the entire ecosystem is led by a female founder who is basically, through Ghost Design, is retailed $2 million worth of, or $2 billion worth of products around the globe. And I think someone referenced office chairs earlier. They actually sell one of their office chairs in a prior company through Costco. But because of their strong systemization of processes, they're able to literally pinpoint what the costs of goods are for the process, and then obviously keep it affordable for the creators, but also have good profit margins. So there's an element of moat of the time it would take to develop those processes.
Does that mean that we're up at time?
Excuse me?
Does that mean?
Oh, no, sorry. That's just a reminder on my side.
Okay, cool. How are we doing, by the way, in terms of time?
We've got 15 minutes left.
Good. All right, so this is great. This is a really good example. So on the product side, on the demand side, we're saying, hey, the itch that we're scratching is this problem where there's a huge target market of creators who would pay money if you could make it easier for them to get their content out there. And so that's the market. And that in of itself, that identification could be a competitive advantage if no one else has really identified that market. The trouble is, once you start exploiting that market, that's going to invite others into the space. And so first mover advantage, you want to get as far down the road and create as much real estate to own the space. So this is about the superior UX. It obviously has to be easy. So there'd be questions around like, who are your early adopters? What's their demographics? How easy is the platform to actually use? 90% success growth rate, which is great. Obviously, marketing is going to be like critically important because you could have the best thing in the world, but unless the light is on a hill, no one's going to see it and someone else will take you out. There's plenty of non-superior products that win in the marketplace due to better marketing. And then the ability to actually execute in terms of superior operations is interesting. You also mentioned something very interesting, which was some tensions around how much money do we spend on reinvesting into the company versus marketing. So I want to talk about decision making. Right. So you spoke about some superior operations, but another big source or another critical source that would be critical to competitive advantage is superior decision making about what you guys do with your capital. Right.
Absolutely.
So then if I were then to just put some stars on what would be the let's just pick, say, 2 or 3. What would you say would be, based on that little discussion, what would you say would be over the next little while, say the next 6 months, would be the most critical things to the success of the company?
Basically, it would be being able to properly implement campaigns for the sake of inbound digital marketing that would identify costs of client acquisition outside of word of mouth.
Yep.
Being able to identify key talent resources that can come in. So as the company continues to scale and grow, it can find great talent that would bring value to the people of the ecosystem. So as more shows come in, the talent and resources are there to execute the systemization of processes.
Yeah. Yep. Good. So all of these are just testing questions, and I think obviously it sounds like in terms of Horizon One, I mean the customer base is there. Is the UX all built, or is that still in dev?
Yeah, it's built, but it's constantly being redefined and developed. And what's coming as another competitive advantage is a patent pending monetization strategy that could be somewhat akin to transforming the existing podcast ecosystem from a radio style of advertising model versus the digital side, more along the lines of Google AdWords.
Sweet, very cool. All right, sweet. Let's keep cruising. So I think that's really, really sweet. So identifying, hey, what are the actual things that are the most important things that we need to attend to in order to be successful? I think even just that conversation amongst the team can have real, real value in terms of focusing people up on what's actually important. Because it's really, really frustrating when you're saying, hey, I need more money for my marketing budget. And it just seems like you're talking about the marketing budget when really you're talking about the whole success of the company. And many people have been in these brainstorming discussions in companies and walked away completely frustrated because it feels like you're fighting with each other when both people really just care about the success of the organization. So even just having a conversation like that of identifying what are our key sources of competitive advantage can be very, very helpful. All right, so let's go a bit faster. So where does resistance to change exist within the system now? So this is, you mentioned decision making needs to be, swift and stuff, but we can fictionalize that a little bit. But is there any, can you identify any resistance to change in the system now that would make implementing any of the innovations difficult?
Well, that's a great question. And me not being the founder, the runner, the operator of the company, it's hard for me to answer accurately. But part of the process that I would imagine is, sometimes there's overconfidence in your capability and not necessarily being ready to pivot.
I mean, that feels like usual human stuff, right, around decision making. And so typically, I think, particularly in startups, obviously in big organizations, but having a decision making process, like an actual process around how we make decisions, can be really, really important. And often people just do not have one. There is no systematic way of making decisions. They just happen on the fly. So let's just put that one. All right. So how might we create demand and capacity for change? And so we might just say a decision-making process. And I would have a meeting and say, hey guys, we've got lots of decisions to make as a team. How should we make decisions as a team? That could be a good conversation to have. Absolutely. And from there, what are the key decisions we need to make? How should we make those decisions? Have a meeting about decision-making. Boom, done. How might we exploit the remaining sources of competitive advantage? All right, so it's startup, so there's lots remaining, but we've actually already identifying product, operations, talent, marketing. These all seem to be where the focuses should be. And so that's why we need a chief marketing officer. That's why we need a really good operator. That's why we need an HR person. And just having that conversation can be helpful about justifying why the engineers are getting paid just as much as the HR people or the marketing people, because if a tree falls in the forest, guys,
Did anybody hear it?
Yeah, exactly. So grand future vision. So, one way of thinking about this is, E-Rock, what happens, like what does Spotify do that renders this completely irrelevant? So what would the future look like for this business? And this is, I think, harder as a startup because you're already talking about the future. But I don't know, in 5 years' time, like, what does the future look like here?
Well, there's a strategic plan through consolidation and aggregation in the industry to bring resources into the ecosystem that will create scalability faster rather than the traditional cash flow of growth. So that's one strategy. And then another part of it is going to be building a native app that will have inherent value and benefits that isn't currently in the ecosystem. So I can't go into and reveal any competitive advantages here on our call at this point.
What about this question? Using the technology of tomorrow, say AI or neural networks or 3D printing or whatever it might be, if you waved your magic wand, what could you imagine this offering could look like from the perspective of your target customers?
Well,
money wasn't an issue.
Well, the value proposition is creating an ecosystem where content creators and listeners can get paid for their time and investment.
We're gonna run out of time, so I want to skip to Horizon. I want to skip to the next one. So where's evidence of the future in the present? So I would say, depending on, it sounds like you've got this patent pending monetization model already happening. So I'm just going to pop that here, because for you guys, that's evidence of the future in the present. I could also imagine something that you're saying we're going to make it easier for podcast creators to get their content out. But I could also imagine leveraging like AI and all that sort of stuff to enable content to creators to automatically know what their listeners want to hear, or to connect them with, you know, the listeners. Like, wave your magic wand. Like, what does really making it easy and seamless? Like, is it an AI that automatically edits the podcast into, you know, the thing that automatically drops in the music? You know, is like, what does really making it easy look like? You know,
Are you like spying on our company?
you know, that's why they pay me the big bucks, E-Rock, you know, all that sort of stuff. So look, I think we've demonstrated how the kinds of conversations that this model can use, and I'd like to open it up and just see how other people are doing. I can see some folks. Well, hopefully you've taken a screenshot of the board and folks can use it at home. But why don't we open it up if there's any questions or discussion about how to use this, the kinds of conversations you could have with executive teams. I'd love to hear from folk who are on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that are here with us live, please feel free to share your comments, thoughts, feedback, ask questions. I mean, here you are with somebody who's working with some pretty illustrious organizations around the globe. And it's an incredible opportunity to glean information that you can apply directly to your business or to friends, family, startups around you. So we're inviting you to participate. So one of the questions that I would like to start off with, Simon, is obviously this isn't something you just threw together late last night getting ready for the presentation. This is, I'm assuming, some sort of a process that you on a regular basis take potentially to clients that you consult with. Maybe you can talk a little bit about a story about how going through the process helped elucidate a successful outcome.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I mean, oh geez, there's a lot of these, right? So for instance, like at Stanford, for instance, one of the things which we were trying to think about was how do you prevent patients getting injured in surgery, you know, or in healthcare in general. And there's so many things you can focus on. And I think one of the challenges that a lot of businesses face, certainly a lot of the clients that Plug and Play faced and current clients face, is there are so many startups offering the moon in terms of what they can provide for you. And it's all very, very exciting. But typically, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard a startup say, hey, we've built this platform and it's like the pizza base. And your unique use case is just like the toppings. And so what we're going to come in with is we've got this thing that we've built, and we're just going to reconfigure it for you, and we're going to deliver value. And I think so many people have had the experience of going down that road and spending millions of dollars only to have something that still doesn't work as well as the thing they were currently doing, and get really, really burnt. And so as an innovation manager, your job is not just to identify what the value creating opportunities are, but it's to really understand the timelines where that value can get realized. Like, that is critically, critically important. If you were in my position, some of you may be now where I was, which is you get told, hey, I want you to do moonshots, you know, moonshot house. I want you to do moonshots. You know, don't worry about the thing that people, I don't want you to do continuous improvement. I don't want you to just incrementally move the needle. I want you to really rock and roll. And I'm not even going to ask you for any, you know, ROI or otherwise. You've got 2-3 year runway. like just go nuts. And if you are naive, as I was, you'll take that and agree with that and run with that. It's very, very rare to be an organization where that's true, because people get promoted, the economics change, these kinds of things. And so even as an innovation manager, you might be in the moonshot house. But the critical thing, if you look at like Horizon 3, even if you're working on really, really innovative stuff, if you try and introduce that back into the organization where it's not relevant, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to find a business unit partner to work with you on this new thing that's not relevant to the core. You're really going to have a hell of a time. And this is where a lot of innovation managers find it really, really tough, in that they're partnering with these really, really cool, innovative startups, but can't find any way to put it in the business. So this is where, as an innovation manager, I had to learn that even if my task was Horizon 3, I need to be working on Horizon 1 and Horizon 2 stuff concurrently, so that I could have the credibility and the success to work on Horizon 3. And so this comes just all the way down to the level of, I wanted to do some work around medication safety, for instance, at a children's hospital. And, I was coming with a brand new system that would leverage some AI to look at patients' medical record, synthesize that with what we knew in the literature, to identify which patients would be at highest risk of a medication-related adverse event given their comorbidities. Very, very complex care, multiple 30 medications, all this sort of stuff. It's really, really difficult to know where the problems might arise. And my nurse colleagues, who were really, really innovative, really, really exciting, just said, "Simon, love it. Thanks very much. But what we really need help with is, we've got this project, patient family-centered rounds, that we can't get off the ground. And I've got to execute on that before the other stuff." And so what I was able to do is sort of sit down with her and sort of use a map just like this and say, all right, what's broken now? Where is the resistance to change? And what we realized was that if we didn't get compliance, marketing, some other departments involved, if we didn't actually create a formal process, we'd never do our Horizon 3 project ever. It would never have ever happened. And even if we built it, we could never implement it. Trust was an issue and all that sort of stuff. And so just by working through the model, one, I was able to identify where my project would fail in the future and start working on the mechanisms of change to make sure that the runway was there when I wanted to land. Second, I was able to generate trust with my project partner by helping her solve a problem that was immediately available. There was a true Horizon 1 that got me some ROI on the board for my stakeholder, which was super, super important. Generate trust at the front line, so they knew I wasn't coming in for my own self-aggrandizement or otherwise. And then third, generate excitement for the Horizon 3 thing, because guaranteed we were talking about it the entire time. And so by the time we were ready to rock and roll, all of the stakeholders were aligned, the runway's there, you've generated trust, and now the organization's ready to do something Horizon 3. And that example, over and over and over in many, many different contexts, whether it's a bank or an insurance company, or even while we're a plug and play, we'll think about similar kinds of things for the organization. As an innovation strategist, really it's about change management. And my favorite quote with respect to change management is that innovation moves at the speed of trust. And this is a tool to help you attend to the most important things that are really important to people when it comes to trust. Organizations are complex, but they're ultimately made up of people. And by attending to the people stuff, you can maximize your prospects of success, or at least minimize the risks of failing on the human stuff, which is where a lot of innovation fails, not necessarily on the technology stuff. So the take home here is this is a really good tool for from strategy in terms of knowing where you are, knowing where you need to go, but it's a very practical tool for attending to the sticky, difficult human aspects of change and having those conversations with your key stakeholders so you can move the ball forward.
Well, man, talk about some wisdom bombs to finish up our presentation today, Simon. Thank you for sharing this amazing framework that I hope that the folks that are attending this presentation will actually take advantage of, implement, and execute so that they can innovate in their own ecosystems and continue to have success and thrive, whether you're a startup all the way through an enterprise organization. So Simon, want to get your permission that we can share this recording with the ecosystem once we're done. So thank you for the double thumbs up. And looking forward to hearing more about how you're becoming a change maker in the world.
Thanks,
so
man. Hey, Rock.
again, thank
really
you and appreciate your time. And thank you for